Across the vast expanse of the universe, a question resonates. Are we alone? If not, have we had visitors? More intriguingly, have we harnessed technology not of this earth? In this episode of Mysterious Mysteries, we dive deep into claims from credible UFO whistleblowers over the past 70 years. (1947), Roswell, New Mexico. Major Jesse Marcel is the first on the scene of a baffling crash. He collects the debris, brings it home to show his family in the middle of the night, then continues on to Roswell Army Airfield. The next day, the airfield issues an official press release. They've captured a flying saucer, landing the story on the front page of newspapers across the world. But they swiftly retract that narrative in favor of a crashed weather balloon. But Jesse Marcel knew it was not a weather balloon, and he said so on the record, on camera.
They took pictures, of course. They had a whole flock of microphones there. They wanted me they wanted some comments from me, but I wasn't at liberty to do that. So all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who discussed, told the newspapers, the newsmen, what it was and to forget about it. It was nothing more than a weather observation balloon, of course, which we both knew differently. We found a piece of metal about a foot and a half to 2 feet wide and about 2 or 3 feet long. Felt like you had nothing in your hands. It wasn't any thicker than the foil out of a pack of cigarettes. But the thing about that got me is that you couldn't even bend it, you couldn't bend it, even with a sledgehammer would bounce off of it. So I knew that I had never seen anything like that before. And as of now, I don't know what it was.
1957, East Anglia, England. U.S. Air Force pilot Milton Torres is ordered to intercept and shoot down a UFO. The object vanishes at an incredible speed, leaving Torres with nothing to target. This incident remains classified for decades, but its eventual declassification in 2008 under the UK's Freedom of Information Act adds confirmation to Torres's account.
When I talked to the GCI, we're going to warn you, we're going to have a hot mission. You will have to fire all your rockets. Be advised, you'll have a bogey 30 degrees at 15 miles on the port side. And sure enough, when I started painting it, I got this blob. It was not a blip, it was a blob. It was about the size you'd get of an aircraft carrier. 20 seconds to go, on the lock-on, we start our final penetration to the fire. And he was going about maybe 100 knots faster than I was, and I was at Mach 0.92. Well, sure enough, I started getting down there, ready to fire, and the circle started coming down, and the next thing I know, the overtake went from whatever it was, my speed, it was about 1,000 knots, something like that. If he took off, I estimated about 10, Mach 10. Airplanes will go Mach 10. Not anything I've ever seen. And this was never made by a human being. This was something that was totally different. I've never seen. He could do things that I couldn't do. He could stop and start and keep going and everything else. But he took off. And he took off, and in 2 sweeps on the ground, he was off their scope. He was off my scope sooner than that. But as soon as that happened, the mission was over, and I couldn't fire. The GCI control says, contact us on the landline. We have very important information for you. I said, Roger. Call the landline. They said, this is a top secret mission. You're not allowed to tell your commander or anyone else anything about this, or we will take your wings away. So I put a zipper on my mouth, and that was the end of that. I could never talk about it again until Nick Pope's people from the Ministry of Defense exposed all their data. Sure enough, the phone started ringing. It rang for 4 days, non-stop. This is the London Times, this is so-and-so, ABC, NBC, name it, this is CNN, and so on. Anyway, make a long story short, I am now able to talk about my experience that I just told you about. Disclosure is what we need. There are many more people like me that are running around with secrets that they can't talk about because nobody will release it.
1961, Colonel Philip J. Corso claims to have handled debris from the Roswell crash. He states that third-party back engineering this debris sparked advancements in night vision and fiber optics. While lacking direct evidence, Corso's decorated military background lends credibility to his claims, and not only did he help distribute Roswell crash materials to third-party contractors, but he also saw an alien body.
There was 5 crates there, like 5 or 6, I think it was 5. I lifted one up, and here's this body there and floating in fluid. First I thought it was a child, because it was small. The head was different, the arms were spindly, the body it was gray. I don't know what this thing is. So like in intelligence business, I just better put it in the back of my head here and wait till maybe in the future I get corroboration so I can evaluate what it is. When I came to research and development, which was 14 years later, by the way, I inherited all these artifacts, and I inherited the reports, autopsy reports from Walter Reed Hospital. That's who did the autopsies for us. So there I started getting indication, proof that a crash really happened here. Wooler Smith is really the man that first put in my mind when nuclear binding coming apart on things. And he was a magnetic, really, he was a genius. But he gave us a piece of metal that he took from a flying saucer. We gave it out and insisted they take the patents. But also we put a little bit of a requirement on there, feed it back to us.
Astronaut Gordon Cooper, the first American to spend an entire day in space, claimed to have seen a UFO while flying over West Germany in 1951. In 1963, while orbiting Earth, he claims that his crew at Edwards Air Force Base filmed a UFO land and quickly fly off when they approached it. They followed protocol and sent the footage to Washington to be analyzed, but they never saw it again.
As they were sitting there filming, a little saucer came from, I say little saucer, it was a saucer, came flying over their heads, put down 3 little landing gear and landed right out on the dry lake bed. And they picked up their cameras and started over toward it, filming as they went. And when they got in fairly close to it, it lifted up, put the gear back in the wheel wells, tipped up, and took off at a great rate of speed. And so they came into my office and told me what had happened, and I sent them over to develop the film. And then had to go through all the proper regulations of reporting this, and we wound up having to send the film forward to Washington in the base jet airplane, and I don't know whether anyone's ever seen it since.
1989, Bob Lazar went public on live TV claiming to reverse engineer an alien spacecraft at a site near Area 51 called S04. He describes advanced propulsion systems and anti-gravity technology. Skeptics question Lazar's credentials and story, but his detailed descriptions of not only how the propulsion system works, but of S4 and the site and its operations precede public knowledge of Area 51.
This came from somewhere else. I mean, as bizarre as that is to believe, but I mean, it's there. I saw it. I know what the current state of the art is in physics, and it can't be done.
Checking out Lazar's credentials proved to be a difficult task. He says he earned degrees in physics and electronics, but the schools we contacted say they've never heard of him. He also said he worked as a physicist at Los Alamos National Lab. Los Alamos officials told us they had no records of a Robert Lazar ever working there. They were either mistaken or were lying. A 1982 phone book from the lab lists Lazar right there among the other scientists and technicians. A 1982 clipping from the Los Alamos newspaper profiled Lazar and his interest in jet cars. It, too, mentioned his employment at the lab as a physicist. We called Los Alamos again. An exasperated official told us he still had no records on Lazar. EG&G, which is where Lazar says he was interviewed for the job at S4, also has no records. It's as if someone has made him disappear.
Well, they're trying to make me a non-person.
Explain. You called where?
Well, the schools that I went to, the hospital that I was born at, past job, and essentially nothing comes up with my name in it. The power source is an antimatter reactor. They run gravity amplifiers. They use gravity as a wave using waveguides, almost like microwaves. When I was let in, it was the first time I saw the sport model in the hangar sitting down, and I was told they could have walked me in the front door, but they purposely wanted to walk me by it. I was told not to say anything and just keep my eyes forward and walk past the disc into the office area. And I did, and as we went by it, I just kind of stuck my hands on it just to run it alongside the thing. And after that, I got to see it actually lift off the ground and operate. The hangars are all connected together, and there are large bay doors between each one. And there were 9 total that I saw, each one being different. What's going on up there could be the most important event in history. You're talking about contact, physical contact and proof from another system, another planet, another intelligence. That's got to be the biggest event in history, period.
And it's real.
And it's real and it's there. And I had an extremely small part in it, but I'm convinced that what I saw is absolute proof of that. There is no way we could have created those systems. There's no way we could have made the discs, the power supplies, anything to go with them.
In the late 90s, Clifford Stone, a U.S. Army veteran, alleges involvement in retrieving alien crafts and their occupants in a secret government program. He claims that the government has cataloged numerous crashes and extraterrestrial species.
It's important that people understand that. Now, there are events, there are recoveries, but the recoveries are few and far between. One of the events that took place in 1969 was a recovery of a craft that I call it a wedge-shaped craft that took place in Indiantown Gap. I was asked to get closer and closer to the object to take readings with the APD-27. As I did this, I realized what I was seeing was not of a earthly origin. Bent waters is another very interesting case. With bent waters, we went there to digest some of the information as far as the physical evidence there. There were photographs, there was film footage, there was evidence of high background radiation, or a higher than normal background radiation, not all that high, but above normal. We found that there was some abnormalities in the area of which we referred to the impact point. We also noticed that the trees had been leveled off at the top. We gathered up the materials. We took these materials back to Lindsay Air Force Base. All the, for lack of a better term, all the hard evidence that we could get. I was involved with the Belgium sightings, that we were assessing information, gathering data on the UFO overflights of Belgium. They also went over Germany. We had one incident there on the border, which this one occurred near the Foda Gap. We saw the object. It was over Soviet territory. We saw that the Soviets were pretty upset. It was triangular shaped, about 3 football fields on either side of the triangle. Once this incident subsided, we put fighters on alert. We notified them that we may have a Soviet craft coming across the gap, and we were going to intercept it. The Soviets did the same thing. Wasn't traveling fast at all, traveling very slow, no hurry to get out of the area. But on this particular night, no one fired at it. There were pictures taken. There was consultation with the Soviet Union. With this going on, everyone was taken in and briefed and was informed that what they saw was nothing more than a Russian MiG-27 that had strayed across into the Foda Gap area far enough into the no man's zone to create a problem and cause some alarm. It was no MiG-27. We know exactly what we were looking at. We knew what MiG-27 looks like. You have flashcards, which are silhouettes of the various craft of the Soviet Union and even our own. What we saw was a craft that was of an unusual origin. It had no means of staying aloft like that without some visible means of aerial support, like a helicopter. That wasn't there. It was perfectly silent, not making any noise, roughly 3 stories high. How many crashes have occurred in which we only got debris from because they came and did their recovery before we got there? Don't know, but it has happened. How many bodies had been recovered? Don't know. You can call them entities, you can call them creatures. The only reason I do that without saying these are real people is so it doesn't get confusing as to whether I'm talking about our visitors or us. A lot of people sit back and say, well, they don't have bases here. Yeah, they do.
2017, former Pentagon official Lou Elizondo, advocating for transparency around the UFO phenomena, plays a pivotal role in releasing footage of Navy pilots encountering UFOs, or UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena. The videos are officially acknowledged by the Pentagon as genuine.
The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security. I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological, hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. I will tell you unequivocally that through the observations, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
2023, whistleblower David Grush, a credible government official who worked with the Pentagon's UAP task force investigating UFOs, claims the U.S. has been operating a secret program since the late 1930s, retrieving not only intact and partially intact crafts of unknown origin, but also non-human bodies.
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was in fact a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
If you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the US populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
An official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah. When you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk, and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
Even with so many credible people claiming the same things over several decades, the mainstream media and the general public either don't talk about it or belittle the subject with little green men and tinfoil hats. But if it is true, and there is a non-human intelligence interacting with our planet, let's hope they're peaceful. Because if they're not, and we've been stealing their toys, do we even stand a chance?